Hello, this is Brian Foster, and welcome to our Tuesday night Spiritism live stream. And we're happy to have you all here. Again, I talk about Spiritism every Tuesday night, and today we're talking about chapters 14 and 15. Chapter 14 is very short, like one page. And chapter 14 is titled A Father's Love. And this is by the Spirit Franchezzo, transcribed by the medium A. Farnese. Now, before I begin, you can get information on the nwspiritism.com. I have my books. I have links to Allan Kardec's books and other PDFs. And also, kind of majorly so, I have, if you're interested in Spiritism, I have my book in PDF. Let me put that here. Spiritism 101, The Third Revelation. It's in PDF format. It's also, if you want it in Kindle, paperback, and Audible, and it's also in French. So it's in PDF, in French, and English for free. But if you want it in Kindle, it's only in English on Kindle and paperback and Audible. Of course, I have all my other books there too. But this is a good, less than 100 pages book, Introduction to Spiritism. And then from there, I would recommend you read the Spirits book by Allan Kardec. Codified. Spiritism was codified by Allan Kardec in the 1850s. So let's get to where we want to be in chapter 14. A little bit of background. Remember, if you haven't seen this before, I would recommend you go to my playlist and start from the chapter 1 about the Spirit Franchezzo. Very interesting person, just amazing. Let me get rid of this title here. I didn't know that was hide. There we go. That way people can see as much as the text as possible. So Franchezzo was a very intelligent person, successful in life. He really was kind of a lapsed Catholic. He was raised Catholic, then he saw too much hypocrisy. And so then when he died, of course, he died very rapidly, and he had finally found the love of his life. And it's too bad. And then he went down into the lower zone, but he was helped by his wonderful love, and by using her as an example and her helpful. And she went and talked to mediums. She started asking about spirits and understanding the spirit side of life, that she had been helping him. And then from that, he helped his attitude. He changed his character. And from there, he rose. And now at least he was in one of the lower, kind of the higher levels of the lower zone, because he said it wasn't, it was dim. It wasn't bright light, but it was still a wonderful place compared to where he was before. So let's get right into it. This is called chapter 14, A Father's Love. After this, there came for me a time of happiness and a season of rest and refreshment, upon which I shall not dwell. Its memories are all too sacred to me, for those days were spent near to her I loved, and I had the happiness of knowing that she was conscious of much, though not all, I said to her. I spent so much of my time on earth that I had none to explore the wonders of that land of dawn, of which I had become an inhabitant. And now a fresh surprise awaited me. In all my wanderings since my death, I had never once seen any of my relatives nor the friends who had passed before me into the spirit land. But one day, when I came as usual to see my beloved, now his beloved was on earth, and she's probably in a medium's meeting, I found her full of some mysterious message she had received, which she was to give me herself. After a little, she told me it was from a spirit who had come to visit her, who said he was my father, that he wished her to give his message to me. I had so loved my father upon earth, for my mother died when I was so young, that she was but a faint, tender memory to me. But my father, he had been everything to me. He had had such pride and joy in all my successes, such hopes for my future. And then, when I had made shipwreck of my life, I knew that I had broken his heart. He did not long survive the crushing of all his hopes, and since his death I'd only thought of him with pain and shame of heart. And now when I heard that from beyond the grave, that beyond the gates of death, he had come to my beloved and spoken to her of me, I feared lest his words might be but a lament over his buried hopes, his degraded son. And I cried out that I could not dare to meet him. Yet I longed to hear what he had said, and to know if there was in it a word of forgiveness for me, his son, who had so deeply sinned. Now, of course, he loved his father very much. In fact, it reminds me, I also loved my father very much. I had like the best father in the world. And what was interesting is after my father passed, whenever I had a very real dream, a dream that meant something to me, my father was in it. And yet he never said anything. I remember I first dreamed my father, and I was driving down this street, and my father was driving. I was in the passenger. And I remember that, it was where I used to live in Anaheim, California. And he'd drive down Walnut. And of course, my dad, grew up in the Depression, and he would always drive down the middle of the road. It was just like, why are you driving down the middle of the road? There's a lane here. But whatever, that was his habit. Scared the heck out of me. But I remember him driving me, and we went to this place, and I at the end of Walnut, there was this place with like a little fountain, like a little real estate agent place or something or not. And half the time, kids would put laundry detergent in it, so the fountain always had bubbles. So, but that, and then of course we went in there. We went into this kind of basketball arena, and it was all full of people. And this is just right after I discovered Spiritism. And then we walked into this place, onto the court, and as soon as we walked on the court, everyone stood up and cheered. And on the score was 5-14. And so I always wondered what that meant. But then I kind of figured out 14 is that's when I wrote 14 books. And then only lately, after a period of about a year or two in between, I wrote my 15th book. But then I've had other dreams with him. And one dream when I was like, I think I had my 6th or 7th book or 5th book, I can't remember. We were going down this highway. And of course, then again, he never spoke to me. We were going down the highway, and all of a sudden, and I'd written books, about Spiritism and so on and so forth. He went off the highway into the desert. It was kind of, it was looked to me like the place around Beaumont and Banning, between Orange County and Palm Springs. And we went off the road and just went through the desert. And that's when I wrote my book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism, which was a more like a different book. I think to me, he told me to do something different, do something more personal. So that's what I did. So anyway, that's kind of how I've seen my father from beyond the veil, as I say. And but every time I have something with him, it means a lot to me. I haven't had a dream with him lately. I had a couple with my mother, so he may be somewhere else right now. Maybe on another planet, maybe incarnated again. Who knows? It's been quite a while. Okay. Let's carry on. How should I tell what his words had been? How say what I felt to hear them? They fell upon my heart as dew upon a thirsty land, those words of his, and are far, far too precious to be given to the world. But surely the father in the parable must have welcomed back his prodigal son in some such word as these. Ah, how I cried out to my beloved when I heard those words, and how I longed to see that father again and be taken once more to his heart as when I was a boy. And as I turned away, I beheld a spirit standing by us, just as I had seen him last in life, only with the glory of the spirit world upon him, such as no mortal eyes have ever seen. My father, so long parted from me, and to meet again thus. We had no words to greet each other with, but my father and my son, but we clasped each other to the heart in a joy that required no words. When our feelings had calmed down again, we began to speak of many things, not least of her whose love had led me so far upon my upward path. And then I learned that this beloved father had helped, watched over, and protected us both, and that he had followed me during all my wanderings, both on earth and in the spirit land, and had protected and comforted me in my struggles. Unseen himself, he had yet been near, and unceasing in his efforts and his love. All this time when I had shrunk from the thought of meeting him, he had been there, only waiting an opportunity to make himself known, and he had come at last through her, who had so much joy of my love, in order that he might thereby link us all three more closely together in the joy of this reunion. Now, this is an extremely important point. We talked about Franchezzo. I've talked about other people. Everyone has a guardian angel. And Franchezzo seems to have a guardian angel that helps him. But there are other people, family members, fathers, mothers, grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, can help us also. And his father had been following him and giving him kind of a little inspiration, and not just in the physical world, but in the spirit world too. Your guardian angel never leaves you. And there was a wonderful story in one of the books by Chico Xavier, the late great medium. I recommend his book, especially start with No Solar. Let me bring that up because I want people to see. It has a whole series and it tells you so much about the spirit world. And I used a lot of references from No Solar in my books, and not just the book, but the whole series. I think of 13 books or so, and it's just full of wonderful information. Here we go. Let me show you that. Let me hide this for a second. So No Solar, wonderful book. I recommend that to everyone. And you can get to that book. You can go to my site, NW Spiritism. You can click on the picture of Allan Kardec, and it'll take you to the FEB bookstore. You can buy those books. You can also, of course, find them on Amazon. And No Solar is a movie. You can find it by Astral City. You can rent it or buy it, I guess. And it's in English subtitles. It's in Portuguese, but it's in English subtitles. It's a wonderful movie. Just a marvelous Philip Glass musical score. So not No Solar, but one of his other books talked about this woman who died young. And she was trying to help her poor husband had two little kids, and she wanted them to stay together. And so she asked for help from other people in the spirit world at the level she was at. And they all came down, and he was at the dinner table with his two kids. Now, he had a girl, I'll be off of the ages, like 8, and a boy like 5 or 4. And he had in his mind, he was making a plan to give both kids to their aunt because he had to work, and that was very difficult for him. So, but then the spirits kind of said, kind of inspired the young girl to say, "Dad, can I try to take care of them while you're gone? I know I can do it. We can have our neighbor come over and help us." And then in his mind was, maybe I should try, right? And so this is how we're inspired, that these spirits came down and said, "Yeah, I should try. I should try that." And the spirit world said, "Look, we're going to help them, and we're going to let you help," because she had just like newly died. But he goes, "You're not ready yet to really help your husband and your family, but we'll help you. But we'll train you and work with us more in the spirit world where you're at. Learn about the processes and procedures of the spirit world, and you can come down here and we'll show you, and we'll help your family." And they also said, "Look, we're also going to get your husband a better job, so he can take care of the children and with a little bit more money." So this is how the spirit world works. These little things, these little synchronicities, these happenstances that, like, oh, I was lucky. Well, luck, who knows? It could be some luck, but really what it is, if that's something you had deserved, it is what it is help from the spirit world to make you, if you want to do something noble, you will be surprised on how that works. You'll be surprised how everything comes together. Now, sometimes the opposite happens. Sometimes you'll be surprised where you'll want to do something and like every door is closed. Example of that, my wife and I wanted to sell our house, and we wanted to buy a new house. And so, or just a different house, not a new house. So we tried to buy a house, and every time we did, it was either sold or something happened. And we said, okay, well, it looks like we can't buy a house to get rid of our old house. Let's buy land. And again, every avenue of buying land, nothing ever worked out. And finally we said, okay, we found out it was worth it for us to tear down our house and rebuild from the foundation up. And of course, then when we decided that, we found the builder. I mean, everything just went smooth. Got the loan. The builder was like the most marvelous guy in the world. He had died since then, so I won't say his name, but he was just a wonderful builder. And everybody here knows, who's gone through this, how hard it is to find a good builder. So we were extremely lucky when we had that done. We've since sold that house, but it all worked out well. Okay. Now, we'll go to chapter 15, a new expedition proposed. When I returned to the Spirit Land, my father went with me, and we spent a long time together. In the course of our conversation, he told me that an expedition was about to be sent from this sphere to work as rescuers in the lowest sphere of all, a sphere below any I had yet seen, in which was, in truth, the hell believed in by the church. How long the expedition would be absent was not known, but a certain work had to be accomplished. And like an invading army, we would remain till we had attained our object. Now, this is kind of typical of what is revealed in the books by Chico Xavier in the Andre Luis series of books. Also, I've also talked a lot about, there's information, it's the same thing, of expeditions to other worlds within the spirit world, circling the earth, in the books by Reverend G. Val Owen. And in that's where I really got a lot of my information of heaven, the levels of heaven, the lower zone within all these books, and then the dark abyss. Now, this has said everything so people can kind of put this in your mind. So think of a sphere with geometry, right? It's a circle for the earth. Now, from the crust of the earth below is called the dark abyss, which is a purgatory. He calls it hell, but there is no, hell implies eternal suffering. There is no eternal suffering according to Spiritism. You're only in this area, this dark abyss or purgatory, until you change in your character and your attitude and you ask for help. The lower zone is from the crust of the earth up to the lowest level of heaven. And there's variations of the lower zone. And of course, Franchezzo was in kind of one of the outposts, I believe, in the lower zone. He thought it was a level of heaven. I'm not so sure, but whatever. And so it looks like they want to go down deep to help people. This is where Franchezzo was too. He was down pretty deep. My Eastern guide advised me to join this band of workers. And as my father had in earth life sent his sons forth to fight for their beloved country, so did he now wish me to go forth with this army of soldiers in the cause of truth, light, and hope. To fight successfully against these powers of evil, it was necessary to be beyond the temptations of the earth plane and lower spheres, and to help the unhappy ones by a visible help which they could see and take hold of. One must not belong to the higher spheres, for spirits more advanced than the brothers of hope in this, the first circle of the second sphere would be quite invisible to the happy ones who could neither see nor hear them. Well, that's not exactly true. Any spirits can make themselves more dense. And he'll say this in the next sentence here. Also entering these lower spheres, we would, in order to be visible, have to clothe ourselves in a certain portion of their material elements. And this a more advanced spirit could not do. Now, that's according to Spiritism, that's not true. More advanced spirits could easily do that. But what they do is they don't usually do that. They send people like Franchezzo, people who are closer to them, because it's just logical and it's a more efficient use of resources, and they can communicate better. They know what they've been through. It's like Alcoholics Anonymous. You have other alcoholics, other drug users, help ones who want to stop using it, right? Because they understand what they've been through. Again, this is where Franchezzo has been down there, not that lowest level, but he's been in a pretty bad place. I'll carry on. So that although unseen helpers from the higher spheres would accompany the expedition to protect and assist us, they would be invisible alike to ourselves and those we had come to help. Now they would be invisible, not because they couldn't be, but because they were managing and making and watching and analyzing this whole expedition. Those who were to go upon this expedition with me were similar to myself in disposition. There we go. That's the you want to use the people who are recently out there so they can talk to them. And it was felt that we could all learn much from seeing to what our passionate feelings would have sunk us had we indulged them. So again, this whole idea of people who are down in those depths and they're better communicate with people who have recently gotten out of that. This is what kind of confused me too when I first went to mediums meetings, and the mediums would have spirits, talk through them, communicate through them. And a consoling medium, a trance medium, had would have a spirit kind of take over their voice and so forth, or they would write or whatever. And then a consoling medium would talk to that spirit who was inside that trance medium. And I thought, well, why couldn't the spirits talk to this person? And that's because a lot of spirits on the lower zone, well, one is they're not really sure they're dead because they look the same, and they'll actually talk to a physical human more than they really want to talk to a spirit. They're too different, right? And sometimes they're really too bright, and they really have to make themselves more dense so they're not so bright. But it's that familiarity. It's like children like to talk to children. And so the spirit world knows what works best. Okay. Besides the Brothers of Hope from the land of Dawn, there were other similar bands from other brotherhoods, always being sent down to the dark spheres, such expeditions being, in fact, part of the great system of help for sinners ever being carried on in the name of the eternal Father of all, who dooms none of his children to an eternity of misery. Now, notice he says other brotherhoods. So again, this is something for us to understand. This is like some of the mundane secrets of the spirit world. We think of Jesus Christ in control of the heavens around the earth, and it's true. And he has ministers that report to him, and he gives orders and so forth. But there's a lot of NGOs, non-government organization. There's the Brothers of Hope. This was made by, I never said who that I know so far, but it was some organization that Jesus said, yes, make that organization, go help other people, and you just do what you need to and ask if you need help. There is in the book, Memoirs of Suicide, another great book by Yvonne Pierre, by the way, by Mary, the mother of Jesus. And she has these huge hospitals to help suicides. She had other things too, but the one in the Memoirs of Suicide was this huge city, was all to help suicides. And they would help them out of their misery. They would tell them why they committed suicide. And they said, no, you shouldn't have done that. Help is always there. It could have been next week, next month, next year. There's never something that doesn't have an end. And then they would help them make their next life plan, and then they would track them in their next life. And when they were done with their next life, they come back and they talk about it. So it's just all these things are there to help spirits become better people, for us to become a perfect spirit. And of course, that's why we're on earth, right? To get rid of our negative emotions, replace them with positive, civilized emotions. A number of friends, I'll carry on again, a number of friends would accompany us as a part of our journey, and our expedition would be commanded by a leader who had himself been rescued from the dark spheres and who knew there were special dangers. As we would pass through the earth plane and lower spheres, we would see them in a way we had not done before. And my Eastern guide said he would send one of his pupils to accompany me as far as the lowest sphere in order that he might explain to me and make visible some of the mysteries of the astral plane, which we would see as we passed. A saying, as the student was named, was studying those mysteries of nature, which have been classed under the name of magic and as such deemed evil, whereas it is their abuse only which is evil. A more extended intelligent knowledge of them would tend to prevent many existing evils and counteract some of these evil powers brought to bear upon a man, often very injuriously, in his present ignorance. The student spirit had been a Persian and a follower of Zoroaster in his earth life, as Azarine the man himself had been, and they belonged still to that school of thought of which Zoroaster was the great exponent. In the spirit world, said Arinzindaman, I may pronounce that wrong, there are a great number of different schools of thought, all containing the great fundamental eternal truths of nature, but each differing in many minor details, and also how do these great truths to be applied for the advancement of the soul. They likewise differ as to their respective theories will work out, and the conclusions to be drawn from the undoubted knowledge they possess. Now, let me stop there for a second. Now, you can tell that Franchezzo is from a lower, maybe lower outpost, and so is Arena Zinman, because what we're told as they go higher and higher in the levels of heaven, and usually after level 3, is they start losing, and sometimes I'm sure there are always exceptions to this, they start losing the fact that they belong to one school of thought, one religion, Catholic, Buddhist, Zoroastrian, and they understand the truth and the true nature of the spirit universe, or universes. And so, but below that, there are still colonies that are just Catholic colonies. There's colonies above Israel that never even, you say that Jesus has no part in anything. There's, colonies all over. There's probably Confucius colonies, everything. So it takes them a while to become more mature. So you can see that these people haven't yet got all the knowledge. And this is where Franchezzo was talking to the people that are superior to him, and this is what they're telling him. But there are areas much above them. So it's kind of showing us at what level he is and what level he's talking to and what level his superiors are. It is a mistake to suppose that in the spirit world of our planet, there's any absolute knowledge that can explain all the great mysteries of creation, the why and wherefore of our being, the existence of so much evil mixed with the good, or the nature of the soul and how it comes from God. Now, some of that's true. We've been told in Spiritist literature that even in heaven, we still do not know God. You have to get much higher. You have to get on to be a pure spirit, then you can understand God. So there's a lot we don't even understand, even in one of the highest levels of heaven on earth. Let me carry on. The waves of truth are continually flowing from the great thought centers of the universe and are transmitted to earth through chains of spirit intelligences, but each spirit can only transmit such portions of truth as his development has enabled him to understand. Very true. And each mortal can only receive as much knowledge as his intellectual faculties are able to assimilate and comprehend. Again, very true. I mean, the spirits could tell us so much more, but it'd be like trying to teach algebra to a kindergartner. And this is something else and this is another good point, and this is a point that Allan Kardec made also, is we think when we pass over, we become all-knowing angels. No, spirits are just as ignorant as us, or smart as us, or smarter. They run the whole gamut. And spirits will sometimes think a certain thing, oh, well, this is the truth, and be wrong about that. And that's why Allan Kardec says you really have to be careful when you communicate with spirits, because you don't know what level they're at. I'll carry on. Neither spirits nor mortals can know everything, and spirits can only give you what are the teachings about which their particular school of thought and advanced teachers give as their explanations. Beyond this, they cannot go, for beyond this, they do not themselves know. There is no more absolute certainty in the spirit world than on earth, and those who assert that they have the true and only explanation of these great mysteries are giving you merely what they have been taught by more advanced spirits, who, with all due deference to them, are no more entitled to speak absolutely than the most advanced teachers of some other school. I assert with knowledge not my own, but from another who is indeed regarded in the spirit world as a leader of most advanced thought, that it is no way possible to give a final answer to or an explanation of subjects which are beyond the powers of any of our spirit and our entire solar system to solve, and still more beyond those of spirits of our earth spheres. So he is saying this correctly. With our own spheres, it's a little bit more limited power. In more advanced planets, Jupiter and so forth, they have more knowledge. But there are still things that even they do not understand. And these subjects and explanations are involved and require a great a knowledge of the limits of the universe itself which has no limits, and the nature of that supreme being, of whom no man or spirit can know the nature, save in so far as we can grasp the great truth, that he is infinite spirit, limitless in all senses, unknowable and unknown. And that is exactly what Allan Kardec, well, not exactly, but very close, is that we cannot know them. And so what we're told is to start to understand God is for us to understand Jesus. And this is a great thing. And I talk about this, of what is Jesus? Who is Jesus? In a couple of my books, one is the Heaven and Below, which is a series of 3 books, and the other one is the Spirit Realm. And because to start to understand Jesus, you can start to understand God. Of course, we won't be able to. We're just not that not that complex or mature yet enough. But that is what we should do, is understand the power of Jesus. And after all, we think of Jesus as this wonderful carpenter, this nice person with infinite patience and calm. And he is that, but it's much more. He's the leader, the CEO, the governor of our planet, other planets besides. But he's not the highest spirit. He doesn't sit at the right-hand side of God. There's other spirits above him. And Jesus started out like us. God didn't say, oh, I'm going to create Jesus. I'm going to create the angels, which is a lot of people think. No, angels are like us. They started as immature, ignorant spirits. And over time, life after life and through other experiences, they became in control of their thoughts, very powerful, very knowledgeable, and very loving. So we can all get there, but it takes work. How can any pretend to show you the ultimate end of that which has no end, or sound the great depths of an infinite thought which has no bottom? Thought is as eternal as life and as fathomless. Spirit is infinite and all-pervading. God is in all and over and above all, yet none know his nature nor what manner of essence he is, save that he is in everything and everywhere. Very true. The mind of man must pause on the very threshold of his inquiries, appalled by the sense of his own littleness, and the most he can do is learn humbly and study cautiously. Hence, when Jesus said, come to me as little children, right? He meant being humble, being open, because you don't know anything. We think, we're adults, we know stuff. We don't know anything. That each step be assured before he essays again to climb. The most lofty, the most daring minds cannot grasp all at once, and can man on earth hope that all can be explained to him with his limited range of vision, when the most advanced minds in the spirit world are ever being checked in their explorations after the truth by the sense of their limited powers? And again, that's what other spirits have said. That, that's the end of that chapter. There. So that was a very good explanation, and that was very true, that we cannot approach understanding God. And what spirits have told us, that especially the ones that talk to the Reverend G. Val Owen, and let me show you that book, Heaven and Below, where I talk about Jesus Christ. Heaven, I talk about heaven, the lower zone, the dark abyss, Jesus. And that even they say, look, there's levels of heaven above the earth, above the circles of heavens of the earth. So each planet with life on its planet has its own circles of heaven. But then there's levels of heaven even above that. And they said, look, and of course, the spirits who talked to Reverend G. Vowell said, we count them from 1 to 10. And of course, in Franchezzo, he said like 1 to 7, I believe. But he said these are arbitrary. People could have different ways of talking about levels, but these are all levels that surround the Earth. And you have to think of other planets, let's say in our solar system, have other levels of planets around. And sometimes, and these are so large that as the planets rotate around the sun, they could even sometimes almost touch each other. So this is, they say, well, what we think is we know that probably when you graduate to the 11th level, then you really are part of the spirit productive army of ones that help other planets, show them, lead races, cultures, etc. They think that Jesus is maybe on the 15th or 14th level. I forgot which one. And so, because he's so much higher, but that's this, they're not sure. And they also know that whatever level you're at, that you go to, there's more above that. At least that's their conjecture. And also in the physical world we have, right, we have our four dimensions. But then, you don't have time. Time is like you see time in all of its, the beginning, the middle, and the end. You kind of see that wherever you look at an object. And then even above that, there might be more dimensions. So there's the mystery and the wonderment never ends. You're not going to get bored in the spirit world. Now you may think, oh, I'm immortal. Like I might get bored. No, you're not going to get bored in the spirit world. Like I can pretty well guarantee you, at least not for billions and billions of years. So, and then my other book that I really go through the physical universe, the spiritual universe, God and Jesus, how you ascend, how a spirit ascends, how a spirit learns, all that, and what your future is. In my newest book, The Spirit Realm, Spiritism has revealed the reality of our existence. So I just hope that this has helped everyone. I hope this has been interesting. And again, if you are interested, go to my website, nwspiritism.com. Download my free Spiritism 101 PDF books. I have all my other books on the left-hand side, right-hand side, I'm sorry, navigation bar. And it's usually in Kindle, paperback, and also Audible for most of them. Not all of them, but most of them are in Audible format. So anyway, I wish you a happy day. God bless all of you. And I will be here usually live streaming on Tuesdays and Sundays. God bless.